Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. In my first game of the stage I finished at the second position in a 4-player game, and today we are going to take a quick look at a 2-player game, and it will be against Allfather. And as you can see, Allfather is at the moment 1 point before me. He lost a 4-player game, but he has also already a 2-player game finished where he managed to win. So, yeah, winning against him would definitely be nice. That would mean that I am then before him in the standings, and it also would mean that I don't fall too much behind Diddley's squad, who showed a very strong performance in the first 4-player game and could potentially be the main contender for the first place in the group. Alright, and now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I am in the first position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And of course, in 2-player games, it's especially interesting to take a look at the culture synergies, leaders and wonders that are in the game. And we can see that there is no Bach in Age 2, but there is Shakespeare, no Gandhi, but there is Darwin. So there are some culture leaders, especially Shakespeare is of course very interesting, but there's no Hollywood in Age 3. There's also no Gandhi in Age 3, but there are Fleming and Marlene Dietrich. So going for some nice culture buildings could definitely work out, but maybe it's not too heavy represented. But there is only Shakespeare and no Bach, meaning if, for example, Allfather manages to set him up very nicely, then of course I have to find a way how to potentially counter it. Then we have the Red Cross in H3, we have no spaceflight, no fast food chains, Pierre is in the game, we also have some lab leaders with Sid Meier, Einstein and Steve Jobs. In H2 we have no ocean liner service, no Suez Canal, but there's Harvard College and Transcontinental Railroad. We have two military action leaders with Catherine and Robespierre. There's Nobel as a very solid leader. Maria is there. In H1 there is Saladin as a very solid leader. We have Columbus and Eleanor as potentially strong transitional leaders. We have Leonardo for some lab and printing press synergy. Isabella and Genghis Khan are there as well. We have the two happy face solution wonders with Forbidden City and St. Peter's Basilica. Machu Picchu is there, and also the Magic Castle. There's no Acropolis in the game. I'm in the first position, and as you can see, I maybe make a little bit of an interesting first move, because I actually ended up taking the frugality here. And if you are maybe interested, you can maybe also pause the video and think about what maybe the reasoning behind it is, because that was definitely not my first thought when I thought about what I want to do in my first move. Because the first instinct was, of course, to just take Confucius. I think he is definitely the leader that I would like to have the most out of the once-on-one civil action, but probably even out of all of the leaders that are in the game. So my first instinct was, of course, or my first thought was what maybe I just want to take him. But then I think it's very, very likely that Allfather will just take the pyramids, and then he will get Boudica. And if he takes the pyramids and if I take Confucius now, then the Stonehenge will be on two civil actions on this sixth spot on the row, meaning I either have to pick it for two civil actions, which I don't necessarily want to do, or I have to go without the Stonehenge. Then the Hanging Gardens would be available and potentially the Colosseum. Both of those wonders I don't like too much, so instead of going for those when I already have a science leader like Confucius, I maybe just would even rather just skip the HA wonder. But in H1 there's no Universitas, no Silk Road. Of course, getting early Machu Picchu can maybe be nice, Forbidden City can maybe be fine. If there's an early iron or something, then it can be fine anyway. Maybe I can invest into iron and then go for either of those wonders very nicely. But I didn't like it too much with the setup to skip the HA wonder. It could maybe work out, but with that I thought getting the Stonehenge could actually be quite nice. And also, if I don't take the Stonehenge for two civil actions, then I have to take a yellow card for one civil actions, and the ones available would be Richland, and Patriotism. And I would have to take a Richland after already having built the third mine, and then it's just always not completely clear if I will be able to use it very nicely. I mean, there is a decent chance with two copies of iron and irrigation that I find a way to use it, but it's still always not too great maybe to take a Richland in hand after having already built the third mine. And no, so I thought instead of taking Confucius now and then a yellow card at the next turn, I can maybe just take a yellow card now. And I thought, of course, also about taking the Richland. That might maybe be the better yellow card. But then again, if Allfather takes the pyramids and I then go for Confucius at the next turn, and again, Stonehenge stays on this spot, meaning I either take it for two civil actions or it will be discarded. And so at the end I took the frugality, so that if Allfather takes the pyramids, I can go for Confucius, get him as a leader, have a yellow card already in hand that I can use for certain, and then I can just take the Stonehenge at the following turn. It won't be discarded, I don't have to take it for 2 civil actions, so that is the main reasoning behind taking the frugality. I considered also still the rich land, because then if Allfather takes the pyramids, I can maybe, instead of Confucius going for Boudica, that would Allfather only leave with Hippocrates. But I mean, I probably would still like to have Confucius the most, and the difference between playing Confucius against Boudica or playing Boudica against Hippocrates are maybe not really that big. So I discarded this thought process at the end, but it was something that I considered. Of course, Allfather can now just take Confucius and Richland, which would also be a fine decision for him, but then I get Pyramids and Boudica for 1 civil action each, and I would be also happy with that outcome. So at the end, I actually made a decision here to take the frugality, and then either I go for Confucius at the next turn, or I get the Pyramids and Boudica, which both I would be fine with. Then Allfather will indeed just take the pyramids. And now, thanks to having taken the frugality, I can now in the first H1 turn just go for Confucius, elect him, build a mine, increase my population, and at the next turn I will still have a chance to go for the Stonehenge. I draw the Crusades and the Heavy Cavalry. Allfather will go for Boudica now, elects her, builds a mine and increases his population, and I was already very happy to see the Code of Laws coming down the row. Immediately when I saw that, I thought now it already maybe paid off to take the frugality, because with Confucius and Stonehenge I will have a lot of science, and I easily can afford going for this Code of Laws. Allfather maybe could even consider denying it, but it would be very, very costly for him, and so I think it's probably too costly for him to deny it, but that means that I can take it now for 2 civil actions, and I was very happy about that. I seeded the Crusades into the deck because the Heavy Cavalry tactic could potentially be interesting, also with Genghis Khan coming down the row. I mean, I didn't really thought that I will go for him, but I at the end still rather wanted to keep the tactic. The development of markets is revealed. I made the decision to take 2 resources from that. I will go for the Code of Laws, and then I will, to get out of corruption, also build my second lab, and then I have 1 civil action left which I can use to take the Stonehenge. However, I definitely have also one alternative that I need to consider, and that is to maybe wait for the Meiji Castle that is coming down the row. Because I have already Confucius for some additional science. Thanks to his additional science I will even be able, also without the Stonehenge, to develop the Code of Laws already at the next turn, and maybe I can invest into the Meiji Castle, get some relatively early culture production, be relatively safe, and if I might be, then I at the end will end up with Shakespeare, then I just am maybe also nicely protected with the Meiji Castle. So it was something that I considered, not going for the Stonehenge here, instead going for the Meiji Castle, but at the end I still rather went for the Stonehenge. I just think at this point of the game getting some economical value with the additional science is just very nice, and also the happy face can be quite useful when maybe going for a culture leader later on. It also synergizes nicely with the St. Peter's Basilica, and without the Stonehenge, even with the additional science from Confucius, I could still be a little bit low on science after investing into Code of Laws, and if I maybe also want to go for iron and maybe some other stuff, then the additional science from the Stonehenge might still be useful. And so at the end I still ended up taking the Stonehenge, but it's at least, I think, definitely worth a thought about just to go wait for the Meiji Castle here. Then I get 2 cards worth the territory, knowledge of the ancients. Allfather takes the engineering genius and the iron. I think that makes sense, and he can, thanks to the additional science from Boudica, even start investing into iron immediately already at the next turn. Or maybe he finishes the pyramids first. I think he can even do both if he wants to. This turn I seeded a Heavy Cavalry tactic in, because this turn I definitely decided to not go for Genghis Khan, and of course I could maybe also just go for it normally, but I didn't really wanted to push territory without having any colonization cards in hand, and I also didn't want to push the knowledge of the ancients, because I already have a lot of additional science with Confucius and the Stonehenge, so I didn't necessarily want to give Allfather also more science, because he might need it more than me. And so at the end, I mean, the Heavy Cavalry tactic also gives both of us 1 additional science, or it's maybe not the biggest difference. Maybe I could just seed the knowledge of the ancients, but at the end I still rather went with seeding the Heavy Cavalry tactic, but maybe seeding the knowledge of the ancients is also fine, or could maybe also be the right decision. I open the development of science. I definitely want to develop the code of laws this turn. I also want to get out of corruption. I can do this nicely with using the frugality and then increasing my population 2 times. After this I have some civil actions left. I could potentially, for example, just build 2 stages of the Stonehenge, but I made a decision that I at least want to take one of those 2 yellow cards at this position, or actually exactly one of those yellow cards, because if I take one of those and Allfather goes for Saladin, or maybe the Knights, then the iron will already be available for 1 civil action for me at the next turn, which would be nice. But if I take both, then it would be guaranteed that iron will be available for me for 1 civil action at the next turn, but then Saladin would drop down to 1 civil action for Allfather, and I didn't want to give Saladin to him that cheaply, so I wanted to take 1 card, and then either Allfather doesn't take Saladin, then maybe I have a chance to take him, or I at least know that he doesn't have him. Or if he takes him, then the iron will be guaranteed on 1 civil action. And also if I build 2 stages of the Stonehenge now, I just don't have enough resources to go for 2 iron upgrades at the next turn, which could potentially be nice to do. And so with taking the cultural heritage and only building 1 stage, I can maybe still go for 2 iron upgrades with the amount of resources that I have available at the moment. Of course, I could consider the urban growth here. I have a lot of additional science already, so the cultural heritage is maybe not that important. On the other hand, I think it's very rare that you just can't use some additional science. There's always, or most of the times, there will be something nice to invest the science into. And for the urban growth, the first alchemy will be discarded. With the Stonehenge, maybe I don't necessarily need to invest into happy face solutions soon. So I just thought I'd rather wanted to have something that I can use for certain. And even though I have already some additional science, it always can be that even more additional science can be useful. Then I draw 2 cards, the Legion Tactic and the Strategic Territory. Allfather will now finish the pyramids, takes the Knights, and then builds a lab and takes the rich land. That I was relatively happy to see. He will at the end reveal the medieval army tactic, so I think it makes sense that he wants to take the Knights, but with taking the Knights he makes it that the iron falls down to 1 civil action for me, and that Saladin will be available for 1 civil action for me. And maybe in this situation it could have been better to not give me both of those cards for 1 civil action, maybe just wait for the second copy of Knights, because that will just allow me to do a very nice turn at my next turn. And if the iron stays in 2 civil actions, it gets already a bit more difficult, because if I invest 3 civil actions to take Saladin and the iron, then it already is a bit tricky to get out of corruption. Developing the iron, going for 1 upgrade isn't enough. I maybe would have to build a warrior. Stuff already gets a bit more not quite as nice. But now that both of those cards are available for 1 civil action for me after seeding, and I didn't want to push for one of those territories because I have no colonization card and I don't want to gift a colony for Alpha to Allfather for very cheap, so I at the end ended up now pushing the knowledge of the ancients, because I also at least wanted to keep the Legion tactic in hand for now. Development of politics is revealed and I have now even another colony in hand, and now with both of those cards being available for 1 civil action, I can just go for Saladin and then I can go for 2 iron upgrades, and I was very happy about that because that will just boost my economy quite a bit, getting those 2 upgrades and also getting now the 6th civil action even with getting Saladin. That of course means that I skip the irrigation, which is potentially dangerous because there's no ocean liner service in the game and there will only be 1 copy of irrigation left now. But on the other hand, I will have now 6 civil actions with Saladin, so maybe I can now even afford a little bit more to take the irrigation for expensive. On one hand, on the other hand, I still have to finish the Stonehenge, which takes some civil actions, so that might not be entirely true. But I just was willing to risk it. I just thought doing this turn like that leaves me in a very strong position, and I was willing to potentially risk missing out on the other copy of irrigation. There was also the cartography with all of those colonies, but I think at that point it would be a distraction. There's also no Suez Canal in the game. I just think I should go for the solid economy upgrade here. Then Allfather will go for the iron as well. It can also go for 2 upgrades, increases population to get out of corruption, and takes another rich land that he can use on his next upgrade. Then this turn I will seed the new deposits. We both have some additional resource production, but in general I wanted to seed, because as you can see I have no full knowledge about the next event deck, and I think that can just be a big advantage. And if I don't seed and Allfather seeds something in, then I already have to take a lot of events into account that could potentially be coming. So I really wanted to have the full knowledge. I still didn't want to push a territory, I didn't want to push the Dark Ages with still some stages of the Stonehenge to build, so I think the new deposits just make a lot of sense here, and hopefully with having 6 civil actions I also maybe will have a nice way to invest those resources into. The development of religion is revealed. I have a 3 population to take it, Allfather has as well, and this turn as you can see I will go for the masonry. I can still use it somewhat nicely on the Stonehenge. Sadly I built already 1 stage, so that isn't ideal, but I can at least still save 1 civil action, and then I didn't build or upgrade any urban buildings yet, so it has the potential to save me a lot of resources there. And also I have a lot of I have now some resource production going. I will have a lot of resources with the new deposits coming, so I thought it could be nice to maybe go for 1 or 2 more wonders, and then I was just thinking the masonry will be a very nice card for me here, and so I was willing to take it, because I need to invest my civil action somehow, and if I could of course just finish the Stonehenge, maybe hope that I get the masonry the next turn, but maybe there's the chance that Allfather will take it away, and so I just thought I can also just take it now for 2 civil actions, but then still save 1 civil action on the Stonehenge. And my first instinct was to now just develop the masonry and finish the Stonehenge, but I think it's not really necessary, because there is still 1 more H1 turn left for me, and I just seeded the new deposits in, so I thought it might be better to just go for 1 iron upgrade. It also gets me out of corruption, and then I have 3 civil actions left, and those civil actions I use to take the reserves and then build 1 stage of the Stonehenge. That one I can't save with the masonry anyway, so I can just build it now normally. I also thought about a patriotism, because I'm on 2 military actions and I might need to build some units at some point. Allfather just revealed the medieval army tactic, so I might build a knight and maybe I have to follow up then. And having the patriotism, for example, would allow me to take knights at the next turn, develop them, build 1 with the patriotism, and then still copy the tactic. So I thought about this, but at the end I thought, first of all, I wanted to have the flexibility of the reserves. Maybe using it for food could be quite nice. I don't have the most population at the moment. I think there weren't that many developments revealed that give additional population. And also taking another card from here will make it guaranteed that the knights will be available for 1 civil action for me. I could also go for swordsman. It was also something that I considered with having the legion tactic, but now that the medieval army tactic is revealed, I think it's just maybe more pleasant to go for the knights, and so I took the reserves, because otherwise I thought Allfather can relatively easily play a turn where he doesn't take any cards from non-discard spots. The Engineering Genius is a nice card that he can take, that will be on a discard spot, for example. So I thought it is relatively easy for him to let the knight stay on 2 civil actions, and I rather wanted to make sure then, instead of taking the patriotism, to take the reserves, to also make the knights available for 1 civil action for certain. But I think I do a mistake here. My last civil action is to develop the masonry. I could of course also still take the patriotism, but at the end I rather wanted to have this already developed. Maybe I can finish this at the next turn, maybe even go for a new wonder like the Forbidden City. So I rather wanted to have more civil actions at the following turns. But I do a mistake here, I think, and I think I should copy the medieval army tactic this turn, because now that I haven't taken the patriotism, I don't have the option to build a knight and copy the tactic at the next turn, and that could just be nice to do if Allfather goes for knight now, and with now having no colonization cards, I maybe either have to take Saladin strength, but then I miss out on a civil action, or I build a knight, but then I can't copy the tactic, meaning I might have to copy it in 2 turns when there will already be H2. Of course, I could maybe draw some colonization cards or some stuff, but I know that there are no colonies coming. I can keep, for example, the strategic territory in hand, so if I really want to push, I also have an event that I can push. So I just think I should copy the tactic here. Now is maybe the perfect time to do it, and not doing so, I think, is a mistake in the situation. I draw even more territories, so I think I have now really seen a lot of them. Allfather will indeed go for the knights, maybe wants to prepare for those events. He doesn't have any clue what is in there, so he doesn't know how important it is to be stronger. He will now just get stronger to not give me any potential strength events, and there is also actually 1 strength event in there with the Crusades, which is maybe not the most important one. And no, so he goes for the knights, and then also goes for his last upgrade, has the Engineering Genius in hand. And at my turn I will then finish the Stonehenge, and I Yeah, I have no to think about how I want to do it, that I am 4 strength behind Allfather and that I have no colonization card in hand. And I could just build a knight. That could be one thing that I maybe can do. I can take the strength of Saladin, but I didn't like both of those things very much. I don't necessarily want to commit to the knights already, knowing that there are no bad strength events coming apart from the Crusades. Maybe I can use that advantage to just completely focus on the economy now. And so at the end I made a decision to use the Signs of the Stonehenge to go for the monarchy. That will give me the 3rd military action, and with that I'm relatively safe from an aggression. I am at the end of the turn still have to decide if I want to take the strength from Saladin or not. Yeah, it just maybe allows me to stay low on strength without too much risk, and also boosts my economy. I'm now at 7 civil actions, 3 military actions, so that is just very nice. Then at least I wanted to have the knights in hand, to have the potential to at least build some military. And then I really thought about a Forbidden City here. The new deposits are coming, it works nicely with the masonry. Maybe I don't really need it that much short term, because I don't really need the ignored unhappy workers at the moment, and I also already have a lot of civil actions, but having even more civil actions can still be very nice, and there will be a time where I will lose Saladin, and then I would drop down back to 6 civil actions, and then it could be quite nice to still be at 7 civil actions. So I thought it could be very nice for me to go for the Forbidden City. I also thought St. Peter's Basilica could be nice, maybe also the Machu Picchu could be an idea, but I thought the St. Peter's Basilica, there's a chance that it might be taken by Allfather. And I thought I'm like Forbidden City more than the Machu Picchu for myself, because I also don't know yet if I will get the irrigation. And maybe there's even a chance that I can go for Forbidden City and something like Machu Picchu if I really want to. So I thought about a Forbidden City, but I think there's one thing that is just too important, and that is to take a breakthrough, not necessarily to have it in hand for my own, it still is a useful card, but to make it that there is one more card taken, because now it means that the age will end. That means Allfather loses Boudica, that will cost him, for example, 1 science or 1 Boudica activation. He will also lose the civil action because he can't replace her, and it might even cost him more. For example, if he wants to go for Leonardo in alchemy, now he has to take and elect Leonardo, take and develop the alchemy, and can only go for 1 upgrade, otherwise he could go for 2 upgrades, so it might cost him another science there. So there's just a lot of value that he loses when the age ends now, and so with that I think I should just take the breakthrough, and maybe at the next turn I can go for the Machu Picchu if I want to, or maybe there's an early age 2 wonder that I can go for, or something like scientific method. And so now at the end I just went for the breakthrough. Now at the end of the turn I have to decide, do I want to take the risk and potentially get hit by an aggression with not taking the strength of Saladin, or do I want to have the civil action? I made the decision to go for the civil action, because Allfather, I only need 1 colonization card, so I thought even if Allfather has an aggression, it's very unlikely that he will try it, because it's likely that I can defend. And also now that H2 will start, it will be quite costly for him to try out an aggression. He would miss out on H2 draws, and there's even a chance, even if he at the end goes for an aggression, which I thought is very unlikely, then there's also still the chance that I just draw a defense card to defend myself. So I was willing to take the risk. It would only be an H1 aggression if it should happen, but I thought it is unlikely to happen, and with that I rather wanted to have the civil action. And then of course I was happy to see that I have now 1 colonization card in hand, so if Allfather should try an aggression, I can now actually defend. H2 starts and Allfather takes the irrigation. It's the only copy left, so he wants to have it for himself, and with that also denied from me, because I could definitely go for the Machu Picchu, and with the irrigation that could have been a very interesting option. Maybe it is still a very interesting option for me, but maybe less strong now that Allfather has taken the irrigation. He then takes the alchemy, takes Leonardo and elects him, and at least taking the irrigation meant that he didn't go for an alchemy upgrade yet, and basically meaning that he missed out on 2 science this turn. So it was definitely somewhat costly for him to take the irrigation, but it's definitely also understandable that he wants to take it away. Now it is my turn. This turn I didn't want to seed, because I will actually go for the Machu Picchu, meaning that 2 of the events in there will improve during my turn, the new deposits will improve, and also the knowledge of the ancients, so I didn't saw a reason to push, especially because I maybe don't necessarily want to have one of those events in there. Of course now I missed out on the irrigation, but on one hand that might be a reason that makes Machu Picchu weaker, but on the other hand maybe it makes it also a bit stronger. I'm not really stronger, but in that sense that there is now a chance that the selective breeding could be taken away at some point, and then I will be without a food upgrade, and then the +1 food production from the Machu Picchu could actually make a little bit of a difference. So in that sense, taking the irrigation away also still maybe intensifies me to go for the Machu Picchu. And so I went for it. I just want to invest my resources, and I thought the Machu Picchu is still a very nice way to do so, and hopefully I have enough civil actions that even after taking the Machu Picchu I can still go for an H2 wonder if one is available. I will just finish the Machu Picchu, and then I will use my remaining civil actions to first of all take the printing press. That is mainly because Shakespeare is in the game. There's only one copy of journalism in the game, so if I'm without printing press, then going for Shakespeare is somewhat risky, but now with 2 copies of opera, if Shakespeare's in the row, I can just take him if I want to, and I'm guaranteed that I will have the urban buildings that I need to set him up. So I wanted to have the printing press in hand, and then I could, for example, just take another breakthrough for 2 civil actions, but I thought I'd rather with maybe some new H2 cards coming in the following turns, with me maybe wanting to take a wonder if one is available, or something like scientific method or journalism still, even with having taken the printing press. I thought that I just want to use 2 civil actions on improving my civilization. I increased my population, I played the cultural heritage, meaning I have 6 science available the next turn, so if there is indeed scientific method or journalism, I can just build one or upgrade to scientific method if I want to, and have spent those 2 civil actions already. Then I draw 3 cards, and I was very happy to see that I have the mobile artillery tactic. I have the knights in hand. If I only get the cannons, then I have a very nice way to get some strength going. So I was very happy to see that I have this tactic in hand now, and also another colonization card is also not bad to have. Allfather seeds and the Crusades are revealed. It's not too bad, but of course also still a bit annoying and a bit of a swing in 2-player games. Now, before that I had a little bit of a culture advantage already, but now Allfather is actually at 1 point in the lead. And Allfather also makes the decision this turn to cut the selective breeding. He didn't invest into irrigation yet, and so he just takes the selective breeding for himself. Goes for the alchemy, will with that get a Leonardo bonus, has corruption, but he has denied the selective breeding from me, which definitely potentially could cause some issues, especially if I want to go for Shakespeare. He needs some population, and then I have to see now how I maybe can make sure to get still enough population out to not be at a disadvantage. At least it is still somewhat costly. He has now spent 5 civil actions just to take those 2 cards, has missed out on some economical upgrades, so that could also backfire for him. But yeah, I think now that I completely miss out on a food solution, it should maybe be worth it to take the selective breeding here. But at least it comes at a price, so I also wasn't too unhappy about it. Then this turn I want to do something to improve my civilization, and there is actually Shakespeare coming down the row. I won't take him this turn, so I don't know for certain if I will get him, but Allfather at the moment doesn't really have any setup for him, so I was hoping that maybe he will leave him available for me, and even if he takes him, getting a little bit of additional science and culture production with the printing presses might still be nice. I go for 1, even for 2 printing presses, at least thanks to the reserves and the additional food production from the Machu Picchu. I will still be able to get another population out relatively soon. And now I still have 4 civil actions left. I considered taking Shakespeare just to have him in hand for certain, but as I said, I thought Allfather might not take him, especially because he has an interesting alternative option available for him. Robespierre and the Republic are both available for him, and that of course could be quite a strong combination for him to have. Could give him a very strong economical boost, so I also considered maybe just taking the Republic away, so that he can't get this strong economical boost. It's definitely worth a thought, but I thought maybe I'm not too unhappy if he goes for that, because that means on one hand that I will get Shakespeare, and on the other hand it means he's on Republic. He might get strategy, but even then, especially when Robespierre maybe at some point will be gone, he doesn't have the most military actions, so he has maybe a strong economical boost. But if I just go for Shakespeare and some big cultural production, then maybe he has some difficulties to pressure me in the military with the Republic. So at the end I was not willing to spend 3 civil actions to cut the Republic. It could just happen then that then the constitutional monarchy is revealed, and maybe if he goes at the end down a military heavy path, which could potentially be problematic for me because I have not the most population, then that could just backfire, having spent 3 civil actions for the Republic. So I voluntarily gave him, or let him have a very strong option for himself available, because I thought the general direction in which the game is going then might still be favorable for myself, because I can go for Shakespeare and he might have some problems to punish me with the military. So instead I just did some efficient actions for myself. I took both of the breakthroughs, getting even more science, maybe allowing me at some point in H3 to go for an H3 government form or something like that. And then if I could play the reserves for food without having corruption, maybe I would just do it. But now I just took the drama, which is on one hand nice, but on the other hand maybe also not really necessary, because I don't have the most population. I have a lot of resource production, and there are 2 copies of operas, so ideally I would probably prefer operas anyway if I go for Shakespeare. But the operas could be late, and maybe it could still be nice to invest into drama, so I at the end made a decision to take them. I could also take the organized religion to have a happy face solution in hand, but that would mean that the Republic falls down to 1 civil action, and I didn't want to give the Republic that cheaply for Allfather. Maybe it doesn't make a big difference, but it made a big enough difference for me that I didn't want to take it, and instead rather just took the drama. I draw another colonization card and a territory. Maybe I can potentially put territory into the deck and keep the colonization cards around for it. Allfather will indeed go for Robespierre. He won't go for Shakespeare at the moment. He doesn't really have a nice setup for him. You would have to hope that he gets the journalism, so an understandable decision. He goes for the Republic. That definitely gives him a nice boost. He then goes for the organized religion, fixes his happy faces, even builds an additional lab, is now at 5 science production, and takes the engineering genius. There are still the Harvard College and the Transcontinental Railroad in the game, so he can maybe, with both of those engineering geniuses in hand, go for one of those wonders at some point. This turn I ceded the developed territory, because I can't keep that many cards in hand, and I thought it could maybe be nice to cede it now and then just keep the 2 H2 colonization cards and the mobile artillery tactic in hand, because the additional yellow tokens could also help me a little bit with my low population that I might have because of missing out on a food solution. The Confucius event is revealed, and this turn I want to go for Shakespeare. I just even with not having the most population, I can maybe still hopefully get 2 pairs going if I maybe disband a religion or a lab at some point, and it can just be very strong, of course, to have Shakespeare, especially with Allfather not having a lot of military actions, and especially because the strategy is available. I definitely want to take that. That makes it now very difficult for Allfather to punish me in the military, and so I think it's a must pick card for me, especially because it also helps myself with the military. So with that, I even more wanted to go for Shakespeare, because I knew Allfather can't really punish me that easily. And then I have some civil actions left, and I just wanted to play the reserves for food now, increase my population. I could build something, but instead I wanted to have even another copy of reserves, and because with being on low food production, those reserves are just very nice, allowing me to still get a little bit of more population going. If the strategy wouldn't be available, then I maybe would have even considered to go for the Louvre this turn, a wonder that I don't like too much, but I have a lot of resources, the new deposits will be coming, and it could just put even more pressure on Allfather, so I think the Louvre is actually a potentially interesting option in this situation, but with the strategy I just don't find the civil actions to take it here. But yeah, if the strategy wouldn't be available, maybe that could be a situation where I would actually go for the Louvre. Then I keep the colonization cards and the tactic in hand. I also draw the Hussars tactic now, which could maybe be an interesting alternative. Allfather goes this turn for selective breeding, takes the rich land, the revolutionary idea, the architecture, and goes for another upgrade to his HA labs. At my turn, as you can see, I will go for the railroad, which I don't necessarily want to, or it's maybe, I don't take it because I think it's a very, very nice improvement for myself, because I have already a lot of resource production. Getting even more resource production should maybe not be my main priority at the moment, but I was a little bit afraid, because if I don't take it, it means that Allfather can go for it. He has both of those engineering geniuses. Maybe he would prefer the Harvard College anyway, or maybe even the Kremlin, but if those wonders aren't available, he might go for the railroad, and that could be a little bit dangerous, because instead of me getting 5 strength now, then Allfather would get 5 additional strength, and then he has already a bit of a strength lead. I can maybe go for the strategy and still be fine, but with me being on low population, it could be awkward if Allfather goes for the railroad, and having the railroad and the 5 strength for myself and together with the strategy could mean that I am just, without needing to build any military units, have a fine amount of strength, and that could mean that I have more population available to put into the urban buildings. So the railroad, no, I mainly take it because of the strength here. I don't think I really need more resource production, but getting 5 additional strength without requiring any population is still not bad. I can finish it relatively efficiently with the masonry, and so at the end I just took and finished the railroad. It at least also gives me the chance to get out of corruption, and now that I have that much resource production, it maybe could also potentially help me with the population, because if I really need some population at some point, I can just delete 1 or 2 mines and I still have 6 resource production. So if I don't want to use the railroad for additional resource production, I can just use it also to get 1 more population going, and if I delete a mine, then I'm back to 8 resource production as I was before. So at the end, I thought the railroad is quite nice here. There's one issue though, and that is that I can't take the copy of cannons now in hand. And that means that it will be in the discard spot. If the second copy is revealed, then Allfather could potentially deny the cannons. But thanks to having drawn the Hussars tactic, and thanks to there being also a second copy of Cavalryman, I was hoping that it should be quite likely that I either get a copy of Cannons or Cavalryman at one of the following turns, and with that I was willing to let the cannons be discarded. And with my last 2 civil actions, I just developed a strategy. I want to do it probably at some point anyway. It allows me to keep more cards in hand, so that I can keep both tactics as options available, as well as both of the colonization cards. And with my last civil action, I then take the organized religion. It's the last happy phase solution. Maybe I could also just consider taking the cavalryman, because that would just guarantee that I have can go maybe for the hussars. Maybe I don't have to develop the knights in order to go for the mobile artillery tactic, but I just thought having a way to get more happy phases going is quite nice, especially now that I have the prosperity in hand. Maybe just upgrading the religion to organized religion could also help me then to get a little bit of additional food, maybe help me to get another population out. Then I draw some new cards, some more colonies. The inhabited territory could of course potentially be interesting, and Allfather, after I took the railroad away from him, will now go for the Harvard College, is willing to take it for quite expensive. If he wouldn't have taken it, maybe I would have taken it, depending on how urgently I maybe need to take military technology, but I definitely would have considered to take it away. So he rather just wants to have it for certain, and with taking it this turn, of course, he can also finish it this turn, use the engineering genius 1 for certain, and get the additional science boost already this turn. With his last civil actions, he takes the cannons, which I was relatively happy to see, because that means that I'm guaranteed to get the last copy of cannons. So he has now quite a strong economy, a lot of civil actions, but I at the moment don't really have a culture lead, but I can now at the next turn start going for Shakespeare and hopefully maybe create a culture lead over the next few turns. I wanted to push here. New deposits could potentially cause some corruption issues, as you can see. At least I still managed to get all of the 10 resources. I just have enough blue tokens for that. But I still wanted to push. I just wanted to get prosperity in there. I could also consider maybe ceding the inhabited territory. Maybe I should actually do it, but I have already 1 territory and I didn't necessarily want to build more units, and then it's likely that maybe Allfather can win one of them very cheaply. So it could also be an idea. At the end I rather went with the prosperity. And then I also made the decision to take this copy of opera, because with having that many resources it just feels a bit bad to build dramas for 1 resource with Shakespeare and masonry. That feels a bit unnecessary. And so I wanted to have the operas get a little bit more of culture production, and also allows me just to spend some resources. So I take the opera, go for Shakespeare. It's my last turn in H2, so I want to elect him. I can build 1 opera, and even with building 1 I still have a lot of corruption issues, so I have to think about how I want to fix those. And I will fix those with playing the reserves for food, increasing my population again, and building another opera. So like this I at least have only 2 corruption. And I have already 14 culture production. It is still somewhat greedy what I do here, because I don't develop the knights, meaning if Allfather takes this copy of Cavalryman, then I can neither go for hussars nor for mobile artillery, and I would have to hope for tanks. So that is somewhat risky. But Allfather does know that I need those tactics. And yeah, but it is maybe risky. But with him having not any additional military actions at the moment, he maybe also can't really punish me if he takes that away from me. And it just would be a very ugly turn if I develop the knights. Maybe I could just destroy already something and build a second opera and not play the reserves of food, do that at one of the following turns, develop the knights. Because maybe it is an unnecessary risk to potentially be denied the cavalryman. But at the end I was willing to risk it, but maybe it's an unnecessary risk. Then I draw some more cards, another tactic and also another territory. Allfather Seeds and a Knowledge of the Ancients is revealed, giving both of us some additional science. He will this turn take the Frugality, use it immediately to increase his population. I can with that increase his population even another time. Goes for 2 cannons and then even reveals the fortifications tactic, which I was very happy to see. First of all, now even if he should now take the cavalryman away, I can just go for fortifications. And maybe I will, even when I get a cavalryman, just go for fortifications. And yeah, so I was very happy to see that, because now I should hopefully have a nice way to defend myself. Him revealing it and going for those 2 cannons, I somewhat took as an indicator that maybe he has pushed some strength events in there, and maybe I have to be a bit careful about it, but yeah, maybe he also just wants to use some military actions now in AFL, still being in H2, but overall I was happy to see that I have now the fortifications tactic also soon available for myself. He then goes for another upgrade to selective breeding, takes the journalisms and also the urban growth. Now it's my turn, I don't necessarily want to push, the prosperity would just be bad at this point, because I have so few blue tokens left, and there might be some strength events coming, and maybe at one of the following turns I can actually increase my strength. So I skipped my politics phase, H3 will start, and then this turn I just somehow have to invest my resources, and with that I made a decision to go for the scientific method. I can go for 2 upgrades. And as you can see, that still means that I would have 4 corruption. All of the additional resource production without having too much population available is a little bit problematic now. But to get out of corruption, I then made a decision to just destroy this religion, build another opera, going up to 16 culture production. So I should really now develop quite a big culture lead over the next few turns. And also there isn't really any card that I need to take now that the fortifications are revealed. I can just skip the cavalryman and then go for the fortifications at one of the following turns. And then with my last 2 military actions, I just copied a medieval army tactic. I think I could have probably already done it at a turn before, but yeah, as I don't have anything else to do with those, I copy it now. Finally, I maybe should have already done it in H1. On the other hand, now I didn't go for knights at all, so maybe it turned out in hindsight to be the right decision. Then I draw some impacts, another colonization card, which I was happy about, because it increases my chances to win the developed territory, and then also 2 impacts which I maybe can play in. Allfather Seeds, and the developed territory is revealed. I of course bid my worry on all of my cards, and Allfather is able to win it, but at least he has to pay a price for it. I was relatively happy to see it, because there is a communism available for him, which might be a strong option for him to revolt into with Robespierre. But the problem is, if he wants to revolt immediately, then he can't spend any military actions, meaning he stays weaker, and if there are indeed some strength events in there, that might be bad for him, so maybe he has to delay it, or maybe to skip it at all. So I was happy to see him having to pay something for it, so I was not too too unhappy about it, especially because he also maybe doesn't need the science that much. So drawing this H3 colonization card has now pushed the price for him quite a bit. And he will rebuild a cannon, meaning he won't go for communism revolution this turn. He instead goes for the opera. He will at least take the communism still in hand, maybe planning to do revolution at one of the following turns, but that would at least mean that he misses out on quite some H3 draws. Then he takes the justice system, he has that many signs, so he easily can invest into that, and also takes the reserves. Now it is my turn. I still don't necessarily want to see it. Colony, impact of colonies is at the moment not that great. After Allfather has won the first colony in progress at the moment, I think is quite nice. Relatively equal, but Allfather has that much science production that I think I have to be a bit careful about it. Even though, of course, I also have quite some decent science production and will even improve it even more. Because again, it is a little bit of an issue to get out of corruption nicely, but there is one very nice way to do it, and that is with going for this early copy of multimedia. I can develop it, go for 2 upgrades, that even gets me out of corruption completely, and now with being able to actually invest those in additional resource production, yeah, that is just very nice then, and I have now quite a nice position, I think. And then with my last civil action, of course, I have to take the cannons. I can't take any risks here. I can't hope to get tanks and keep the hussars tactic, because I've now, I think, built up a really nice position with a very big cultural reduction, meaning that I, at this point maybe should start playing it a little bit safer. And this turn I use my 2 military actions to copy the fortifications tactic. I keep the colonization cards, draw some cards. The impact of culture could be very interesting, so I have to be a little bit careful, because at some point I might lose Shakespeare, and I have to make sure that I, even without him, have more culture production. Allfather seeds and the prosperity is revealed, and yeah, I get some additional food out of it. At one of the turns before, I think instead of destroying this religion and building the opera 2 turns ago, I thought about going for the organized religion and for 1 upgrade, because that would give me even 2 more food then, and that would mean 2 additional population, but that only works in theory, because in reality I would not have enough blue tokens. I mean, now I would have, but it was very unlikely that I would have, and if I don't build this opera and only invest fewer resources into the organized religion, then I probably also would now not have enough blue tokens, so sadly because of that I couldn't maybe get another population out now, but at least the prosperity is still makes it that they get 1 more population out. Allfather goes for Robespierre revolution to communism, has now a lot of civil and military actions, goes for the journalism and gets 2 more population out, builds 1 journalism, 1 opera, and then just goes for flaming. He also would have been a very interesting leader for myself, but now also a very strong one for Allfather, so I think it makes a lot of sense that he takes him, and then he also takes the oil in hand, interestingly. This turn I see the impact of culture. I thought about if I maybe should wait, because there's maybe some danger that at some point I'd lose Shakespeare and Allfather and invests a lot into the urban buildings, but he doesn't have that many resources. Even if he builds 2 more operas, I should still have a lead, especially because I will go for the democracy this turn, and also next turn Allfather will take a look at my hand, so if I keep the impact of culture in hand, he will have knowledge about it. Maybe that means that he can pulse everything, that he tries very hard to win the impact of culture, and so I just didn't want to have him knowledge about it, and I was also very confident that I hopefully should be able to win it. Sadly, there's the iconoclasm revealed, so I lose Shakespeare now already. That is definitely a little bit of a setback, but it was also nice for me that it maybe wasn't revealed earlier, so I at least could keep him for a little bit longer. And in this turn I go for the democracy. I can get 1 more population out. And first I thought about building just 1 more multimedia, but I have already a big culture lead, and I rather thought, I still had the feeling that maybe there's 1 strength event at least left, because Allfather went for those 2 cannons and revealed the tactic, so I thought maybe it's better to increase my strength, and then Allfather has to see, either he builds more military, but then he falls even more behind in culture, or he builds culture, but maybe he can't compete for the strength event then, and in general maybe just investing a little bit into military is not that bad in my situation, because Allfather has now also some military actions. If he, for example, gets military theory, maybe he can pull something off with a war or something like that, so I just, instead of building a multimedia, build a cannon, disbanded a warrior, and build even another cannon going up to 19 strength, and then I have still 2 civil actions left to take reserves, and this copy of reserves will just allow it to get even 1 more population out, which hopefully will be nice. I draw 2 cards. The mechanized army tactic won't be useful because the tanks will be gone. Allfather seeds and the freedom of movement is revealed, so actually no strength event, and Allfather uses the freedom of movement, interestingly, to put a knight into iron, goes for the oil, uses the efficient upgrade, takes the mechanized agriculture. I could have taken that copy at my turn before, but I think at this point it is just very late, and it could still be nice for some impact, so I probably would have taken it at my next turn, but I wasn't willing to take it at the turn before. I think the democracy and building those units were more important, but Allfather still maybe wants to take it away, maybe also potentially have it available for some impacts. He has the potential to go for a very big impact of balance if he draws it, because at the moment he doesn't have any cards in hand, but maybe he has even already seeded it. He then takes the United Nations. Him going for oil, I think, is a very, very big indicator that he maybe has already seeded impact of industry. He doesn't have it in hand because he doesn't have any cards in hand, so he probably won't evaluate it with the United Nations. But either impact of industry or maybe impact of balance, I think, have to be in there. Otherwise, going for this oil, I think, doesn't make too much sense that late. I see the inhabited territory just because I'm the strongest. I wanted to push, and both of those impacts at the moment aren't really safe because I won't take the military theory, and then the impact of progress might potentially be quite nice for Allfather, especially because he has knowledge about it. And the impact of population is also not that great for me, even though it is actually not that bad, but Allfather might just get some more population out over the following turns, so both of those impacts I didn't want to seed, but I still wanted to get the 2 culture for seeding, and actually there is the impact or the popularization of science revealed, which gives me 1 more culture than Allfather. I then use the freedom of movement to put a scientific method into Opera, and I also have a chance to get a new leader this turn. I will go for Marlene. And then I will play the reserves of food, increase my population, and actually build another multimedia, going up to 29 culture reduction, so I really get a very big lead. And then I take even another copy of reserves that serves 2 purposes. Maybe I will just use it to get another population out, but also it allows me to have 15 or more resources available for my next turn, which might be important, because that allows me to go for 3 more cannons with Marlene if I fill the tactic 2 more times, meaning I would beat 38, and with that I figured I should be relatively safe, because if Allfather, for example, goes for the military theory and builds 4 cannons, which might be probably the most that he can do, then he gets +5 from the military theory, +10 from the tactics is +15, and then +12 from 4 more units is +27, and then he also would beat 38, so we would tie in the war. So I thought I can afford this additional multimedia and hopefully won't be in any big danger. Maybe if Allfather just builds up at his next turn and then goes for a war in 2 turns, potentially it could be dangerous, but I was hoping that with my nice resource production I could still somewhat nicely defend, maybe also with the Manhattan Project potentially, and then if Allfather doesn't invest into more culture reduction, the culture lead from me will just be that big that he needs a big war, and I was hoping that I at least can make sure that the war isn't too big. Maybe I could also just not build the multimedia, but yeah, it gets me out of corruption, and at the end, with there not being any imminent danger, I was willing to build it. And then the reserves, I think, is an important pick, because without it, then I definitely might be in danger of getting hit by a war. Then I draw some more impacts. It's nice to know that the impact of balance is not in Allfather's hands. He will then go for military theory, goes for the mechanized agriculture, builds or upgrades some more mines to oil, so the impact of industry is very likely to be in there. And yeah, I was definitely happy to know that the impact of balance is not in there. He then plays the revolutionary idea and takes the air forces. This turn I seeded the impact of progress in, because I will take the satellites. And with that, if I develop it, it is equal, so I just get 3 culture for seeding. Also, I thought with Allfather's position, there are each turn he probably will improve his positions for the impacts, so it might be nice to see his impacts revealed earlier. So I seed, and the impact of industry is revealed. For example, maybe he could have made that one even bigger. And so he gets now only +7. It's still a nice impact, but it's also not that bad for me with having Machu Picchu and Railroad. I then take the Manhattan Project this turn, mainly to score some culture, but of course it could also help me with the military. The Empire State Building might not be that big. I might have the most culture production at the moment. I also have the most strength, but Allfather can maybe do something about it, at least with the strength. So the Manhattan Project is just the one that it gives me the most culture, and it also might help me with the strength. I considered just playing reserves of food, increasing my population, building multimedia, and then I can maybe take the military build-up or the engineering genius, but in this situation I think I have to be a little bit careful, because if I do something like this, then Allfather definitely could potentially go for a war and go for maybe 2 more cannons, an air force, and then if he gets one of those cards, even another air force. So I just wanted to play it relatively safe, take the Manhattan Project, take the engineering genius, the military build-up, and also the satellites, and if there should be a war I can develop the satellites for some additional strength, and I can just destroy some stuff and build quite a bunch of units, or maybe also additionally finish the Manhattan Project. Maybe it is not enough. I didn't do any concrete calculations, but I was confident that the war would not be big enough to to close the culture gap. And yeah, and with having the Manhattan Project and those ability to just go for some more cannons, I was hoping that I can relatively nicely defend myself. And the satellites, of course, I also need to take now that I have finished, now that I've seeded the impact of progress in there. Now H4 starts, and Allfather will increase his population. He doesn't go for a war. He also doesn't seed, which might be unfortunate for him. He also, as we can see, doesn't evaluate anything with the United Nations. There are surely some nice impacts for him, but yeah, he also, with going for the Robespierre Revolution and in the turn before missing out on the full draw, missed or maybe out in some draws, but it's still maybe a bit unfortunate for him that he seemingly doesn't find anything nice to push into the deck here. And then he will just finish the United Nations and takes the Red Cross. With that he will be able to go for 2 H3 wonders, so that is definitely not bad. At least thanks to the reserves I will be able to build one step of the Red Cross so that he doesn't get a full Red Cross. And then it is my last turn, and ironically I will actually seed the impact of population in there, which seems a bit weird with me having still those HA farms and Allfather, these mechanized agricultures, but at the moment it's actually equal, and Allfather will spend 12 food at the Red Cross, meaning he will have only enough left for one more population, and then with the 3 culture for seeding it still gives me +1 and is worth it to seed it into the deck. The impact of competition at this point is also equal, but there is just a chance that Allfather maybe will improve it, while he just can't improve the impact of population by more than 2, so I seeded that one into the deck and opened the impact of culture. And then I play the reserves for food, build a stage of the Red Cross, develop the satellites for impact of progress, build 2 stages of the Manhattan Project, and then before finishing it I want to make it even bigger, go for multimedia for +3 culture production. Now I'm at 32 culture production, and I can finish the Manhattan Project for at least 15 points, and then I take the urban growth away just in case Allfather maybe wants to destroy some stuff and build as many urban buildings as possible, because there's the Harvard College, so he could potentially use the urban growth. Allfather now seeds, so he at least has 1 impact that he wants to have in there, and the impact of agriculture is at least quite a nice one for him, giving him +11 against me. He then increases population, builds 1 more organized religion, interestingly. So that could mean that the impact of happiness is in there. Otherwise, building an opera or journalism should make more sense. He then finishes the Red Cross, develops the air forces, develops some technologies, maybe the impact of technology is in there. Otherwise, I think maybe destroying some stuff and building more urban buildings could have been nicer. Maybe at this point he also has lost a little bit of hope, because because the gap is quite big. So maybe he also didn't put too much thought into this last turn, because depending on, of course, but with impact of industry out, I mean the last upgrade doesn't make too much sense, and maybe it with also not being nicely prepared for Harmony, just deleting some mines and building more urban buildings. Urban buildings could maybe be better, but no. We will see what impacts he has seeded. He then goes for 2 upgrades to the rockets, and then before the final impacts I have quite a big lead, so there should be no danger that I should lose this game. And the first impact is the impact of happiness, so that one is in there indeed. Then there's also the impact of population, which gives Allfather +2 against me, and the last one is the impact of progress, which gives both of us +20, and at the end I am able to win this game. Now, so in this game I had a little bit of an issue with my population, so that was definitely a bit problematic, but I think it was maybe also a nice game to see how you can work around that with going for some reserves, with maybe going for some wonders that improve your economy so that you can maybe delete some stuff without being punished too much. In this case I didn't really had to do it, only at the last turn I destroyed this mine, but it could have been always an option to just destroy 1 mine while still having decent production left. And yeah. And then Allfather had a decent position, he had a very strong economy at the end, but after he went for Robespierre and the Republic and I got the strategy, then his limited options were maybe a little bit limited. I could go for Shakespeare, even though I was relatively low in population and didn't have to worry too much about the military, also thanks to the 5 additional strength from the railroad and the 3 additional strength from the strategy that I could have without needing any population in the military. So that made me a little bit safer and allowed me to go for those urban buildings. And then Allfather built up a very nice civilization, but just couldn't close the culture gap at the end. Maybe also didn't draw war early. He went for the Robespierre revolution to maybe have also done as some military actions, but that of course also means skipping some draws. So no, I don't know if he maybe could have had a chance to go for a war, but yeah, I at least prepared myself somewhat nicely for potential wars. And yeah, so at the end, I win this game with a lot of culture reduction. 32 is definitely not bad. Sadly, there was no Hollywood. That one would have been, of course, quite big now. Yeah, but overall an interesting game, also with an interesting start. And yeah, so let's maybe take a quick look at the standings, and we will also take a look at two games where I played that I won't show on this channel. So if you still want to watch those games without knowing the result, I will put the replay codes of those games in the description of the channel. And if you want to watch those games without knowing the result, then maybe pause the video now, because now we will take a look at the current standings. And in those other two games, I managed to win both of them. First, a 3-player game against Allfather and Cmacu, and then also the 2-player game against Cmacu. So of course I'm quite happy about those results, and with those wins the current standings look like this. So after the second place in the first 4-player games, I managed to win 3 games now, which I'm very happy about. I'm now at 16 points. Diddley Squad is at 6 points, but he has still only this one 4-player game finished, so he can definitely still catch up very easily if he gets some wins in. And Allfather and Cmacu also already 4 games finished, and both of them are a bit more behind. Cmacu didn't have an ideal start, but there are still 4 games left for him, so he definitely shouldn't give up. There could still be some hope left. Allfather is only 5 points before him, and no, at the moment, it looks like with Diddley Squad only having 1 game finished, with him having won this game, that he at the end maybe might be the biggest contender for the first position. And the next games that we will take a look at will be games where Diddley Squad will be involved. So that should be interesting to see how how many points he will be able to score. And yeah, but after those wins, at the moment I'm definitely very happy about my position in the standings. And if I should manage to get some nice results in the games against Diddley Squad, then I think I have good chances at the first position. But I of course have to get those results in, because if Diddley Squad just wins a lot of games and finishes before me in some of those games, then it could get close with the first position, or then Diddley Squad should have the better chances. So I hope you're looking forward to those games to come. Then thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.